Do you feel like they're the biggest threat to humanity right now, the shadow government? What do you think their main goal is right now?
To cause fear and chaos and confusion, to really destabilize us. On another hand, we have to be destabilized in order to regain a certain level of stability. You got to break down to break through. The current system is not serving the average everyday person, and we've got to get to a place where, the pyramid is flipped upside down.
All right, guys, she is back, and she brought some notes this time. Let's go.
Yeah,
Elizabeth
let's go.
April brought the receipts.
I do.
Emergency episode too, guys. I hit you up this morning because all this alien stuff going on. So thanks for coming on last minute.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what's exactly going on in New Jersey and other parts of the world right now?
Yeah, so there's been these reports of they're calling them UFO drones, right? And I'm a remote viewer. I just want to start with that, saying that all of the information I have, I don't get from news articles. I don't watch docuseries. I just remote view, and whatever I pick up on is what I gain access to, right? And I always like to say, take it or leave it. So with these UAP drones, when I was remote viewing what was happening in New Jersey, it's really clear that this is government. This is not extraterrestrial. I did not see what I usually see with real UFOs or extraterrestrial craft. It was very clearly government-oriented and probably deep state government. And then when I went a little bit deeper into what these devices or these things are, it's clear that they're being deployed from the military bases, right? So that's the reason why they're around. And there's a couple of other extra kind of tidbits of information. One is it seems like there's some sort of device that's attached to these machines or these drones, and it seems like it's a scanning device. I don't know too much about, what these sort of technologies or devices could be, but it looks like it's able to scan, and I don't know what they're looking for, right? So that's like part of it. I think that the intention behind what they're doing is there's a couple of different intentions here. One, I think they're maybe testing out the technology for some other type of use later down the line. Not sure what that use was. I wasn't able to pick up on that clearly. And then two, I think that there is a little bit of a testing when it comes down to the reaction or response from people. This is why we are only seeing them at night. I think that they want to avoid a lot of the commotion. And I also, how would people respond to real UFOs in the sky? So yeah, that's sort of what's going on. It's definitely not extraterrestrial. I think that there are real UFOs being caught on camera as well, to just sort of mix it in there, but they're sort of always around.
Right.
But these ones in particular, they're definitely government or deep state technology that they're deploying.
That's interesting because the government has announced that there are UFOs coming out of the water, right? I saw some press release about that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's been happening for quite some time. So I do believe there are extraterrestrial bases in the oceans, and there's nothing really special about them other than the fact that that's a space that there's not a whole lot of humans, so
Right.
they get to sort of hide themselves a lot better down there.
So they must have some technology where they can breathe down there.
Well, it's more like a dome. It's more like a bubble.
Oh,
like
got
a
it.
dome.
So like SpongeBob, Sandy Cheeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yo, let's go. So the government has their hands on this stuff, though, for sure, this technology.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, they've been reverse engineering UFO craft for quite some time now.
So they just figured out how to make it on their own, you think? Or you think they kind of just stole some? And
Yeah, I think that they've taken some equipment, and I think that they're in the works with some extraterrestrials to exchange human beings for abduction and experimental research with the extraterrestrials for their technology. So I think that there is sort of there are contracts that are being had between governments and extraterrestrials.
wow, contracts, like spiritual contracts or?
No, like physical contracts saying if one of them anyway with the tall whites, essentially it's about 30,000 individuals that they're able to abduct per year in exchange for their technology.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And what do you think they want to do with the abductions? Because they're sending them back, right?
Yeah, they're sending them back. So, I mean, I don't, and this is the unfortunate part, I don't think that the government really cares what the extraterrestrials are doing with the humans. Maybe as long as there's no loss of life, it's okay. So, and there's many different reasons why extraterrestrials or aliens are abducting humans. Each species has their own sort of reasons and intentions behind it.
Right. Do you think they're targeted abductions like yours was, or do you think most of them are random?
I think most of them are random. I think some of them do come through sort of a lineage of like family. It's like, oh, if your mom got abducted and your grandma got abducted, then you're next in line, sort of thing. And I think that there's some more spiritual contracts related to that, but I haven't dug too deep into it.
And it seems like some of the alien species have memory wiping techniques, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, most of them do.
That's crazy. So you come back and you just thought it was a bad dream or something.
Yeah. Usually there are like signs and symptoms that you've been abducted. Like for me anyway, it usually feels like waking up and you literally feel like you've been drugged. You're like, whoa, did I just take a ton of melatonin last night? Like what happened?
Damn.
You know? And then there's other like very strange sort of symptoms that you've been abducted, like your clothes are on backwards, or your socks are on the wrong foot or whatever.
Wow.
I usually have like mismatched socks, so it's like usually easy to tell. But yeah, and so there's definitely and then there's also like radiation poisoning as well. So anytime I get abducted, I usually get nosebleeds, like pretty heavy nosebleeds.
That's interesting.
Which is part of it. Yeah.
Because of the specific spot you just get radiation poisoning.
Yeah. So the ships have a high amount of radiation. And so whenever you get abducted, you do get exposed to a certain amount of that. And one of the immediate reactions of radiation kind of poisoning is nosebleeds.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Some people get nosebleeds often. So I wonder if there's a link to that.
Yeah, I had nosebleeds all the time as a kid.
Dang. That is crazy.
Yeah.
I saw your YouTube video. You recently remote viewed the White Hats.
Yes, I
And
did.
there was an interesting experience there, right?
Yeah. So I didn't know what to expect. I ended up getting into a deep state of trance, leaving my body. I set the intention to go meet the White Hats. I really didn't even know if they were going to talk to me. And I ended up going into a base that felt like the Bat Cave. And it was inside a mountain, which was new and interesting. And there was like a group of them. And some of them were sort of government officials that were almost like double agents working for the White Hats, and then also working for the government, like top secret military style. And then some of them were also like extraterrestrials that looked very human that are working for the White Hats.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you went back to your house and 4 of them followed you back, basically.
Yeah. So that night, it was a couple hours after I remote viewed their base. And that night I was just sort of doing my energetic checks, especially when I go somewhere new, you want to make sure. And there was 4 remote viewers from the White Hats that were surrounding my house. And there was no like malicious intent. I just didn't like that they were in my space. So I kindly asked them to leave and they haven't been back, which was nice. But yeah, there's a whole section of the White Hats that are just remote viewers like me. And then there's also a section of the White Hats that are like White Hat hackers. So they're all like super techie and they get commands from the White Hat organization from their computer.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so cool.
So a lot of these White Hats are involved in politics.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So they're positioned in really high level positions, all in all different sections of society. And at a certain point in time, I don't want to say it's going to be like a takeover, but it's essentially going to be a transition from the shadow government deep state into the White Hats or the collective, who are really here for humanity, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're different from the shadow government. That's a different group.
They're the good guys.
They're the good
essentially, yeah. So the White Hats are kind of like a top secret organization of individuals who want to help humanity gain back our power and control. So think of the shadow governments, but the opposite. So there is another organization, boots on the ground here on planet Earth, who are helping to shift us into a better position.
Nice. Are they a newer organization or have they been around?
They've been around, but I would say newer, like maybe the past 200 years, whereas the shadow government, I mean, they've really been around since the dawning of humanity.
Wow.
They've really wanted to take over since the beginning.
Yeah, because you've heard of Illuminati and secret societies
It's
for
all of that. Yep.
so many years, right?
Exactly.
That's interesting. So is this the first time there's been an attempt to kind of fight back against that?
This is the first time there is the space to fight back, let's say, right? Because for such a long time, the world's been dominated by this top secret organization, and the cards just haven't been in our favor. And recently, things are shifting.
Do you feel like they're the biggest threat to humanity right now, the shadow government?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
What do you think their main goal is right now?
Their main goal is to cause fear and chaos and confusion and to really destabilize us. But on another hand, we have to be destabilized in order to regain a certain level of stability that is different than we've ever had. So, you got to break down to break through, and it's got to get worse before it gets better. And that's kind of where we're at right now is the current system is not serving the average everyday person. And we've got to get to a place where, the pyramid is flipped upside down.
Right. It seems like when people get to a certain level, whether it's fame or money, they get approached by one of these organizations, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Seems like it's inevitable at a certain level.
Yeah, but what's really exciting is that the shadow government is losing power. They're losing control. And one of the biggest reasons is they're having a hard time recruiting new individuals these days. And that's because of influencers. It's because if someone approached you and said, I'll give you riches and fame and money and influence if you just sign over your soul. And you're like, I got that.
Right.
I don't need that. So now the everyday person is being empowered by this thing we call the internet. So we can directly speak to the world without needing an organization to prompt it, to support us in that, which is so empowering, right?
Right. I would say social media and alternative media have kind of leveled the playing field.
Big time.
Now anyone
Big
can
time.
become a modern day celebrity.
Yes.
You don't have to be like an actor or a musician or someone.
Yes, exactly. And it's very similar to crypto, right? Like I think in a lot of ways, crypto is leveling the playing field with finance.
Right.
And giving the power back and giving the financial stability back to the average everyday person, which is why, there's this huge question around regulation and government control. And it just feels like it's the opposite understanding or idea of crypto, right? So
yeah, a lot of big banks just got exposed because they were debanking people in the crypto space.
Wow.
Yeah, so they weren't letting you have bank accounts if you were in the crypto space.
Yes. Yeah, I've heard about that.
So that just got massively exposed.
Yeah.
I've even had a couple accounts shut down.
Oh, wow.
Just for saying crypto on the podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think the banks want crypto going mainstream.
They don't unless they can regulate it, right?
Yeah.
So
It's nuts.
Yeah.
How was Disclosure Fest? That was a few weeks ago, right?
yeah. Oh, that was great. It's always good to get people together and just share good vibes and help the world ascend.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
learn anything cool at that one?
Well, I think everyone's got their own take on what's going on, but at the end of the day, we're all coming together and saying the same thing, which is, I know it sounds so woo-woo, but, just empower yourself and love yourself and get to that next vibration and stop feeding the matrix, stop feeding the fear. Like, I think that, especially with the recent election, we're so either left or right, and we've got to get to a place of neutrality.
Right. Yeah, your takes on Trump were probably pretty, looked down upon in the spiritual space, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. You know what? I get on for calling him an idiot, and I get on for saying we need him. So
You can't win either
no,
way.
I can't win. No.
Yeah, that's why I just try to stay neutral.
Stay out
on
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of me, I feel like I do want to talk about polarizing things to bring neutrality to them, but it does ruffle some feathers when I do.
Right.
Yeah.
One guy in the spotlight right now is Elon, and you recently remote viewed him, right?
Yes,
Made a whole
I
video
did.
on it.
I did.
I thought it
remote
was
view.
really interesting what you found out.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go to my notes because when I remote view, I write down a bunch of notes and I want to highlight the top things. Okay. So when I remote viewed Elon, couple of things. First of all, he has not chosen a side, right? I think that's the one thing that we all want to know. This guy with all of the money, all of the power, all of the influence, and clearly has a brain to him, right? Which side is he on? Because if you just take a look at a photo, he kind of looks like an evil villain. Like he absolutely could play that part. And I've always been very neutral, just personally around him. And so one thing that came through is that he's sort of playing both sides because, as you mentioned earlier, right? If you get to a certain level of influence, you're going to be contacted by the shadow government. You
Right.
are. I mean, there's just no way to go around it. And so he has been contacted by the shadow government, but it was very clear from the remote viewing that he doesn't work for the shadow government. He's not having meetings with them. It's really interesting. He doesn't actually take them as seriously as he needs to, right? Because they do hold a lot of the power. And he's got a very sort of nonchalant, even like comical sort of sense about, oh yeah, sure, like you run things. And so he's playing both sides, right? He hasn't really chosen a side. He very much so seems like just an independent contractor. And one of his biggest things is sovereignty. So when I was taking a look at his soul contracts, he wants to be independent of any major organization, whether that be the white hats or the shadow government. So he doesn't necessarily work for either side, which I think was really fascinating. And I think that because he's so clear in his sovereignty, it's going to stay that way. I really don't see, I mean, what could the Illuminati offer Elon Musk that he doesn't already have?
Facts.
Right? There's just no other thing. There's no other playing card for him. So that's a good thing. Okay. I also picked up on that he is very adamant about AI and sort of like the overtaking of AI. And he's got these robots, and we think of every sort of robot movie in existence, right? Terminator, great example. And we're thinking, Elon, what are you doing? Like, the risks involved, so why are you pushing the market? But when I took a look at his soul contracts, it's clear that he's only pushing to dominate the space because he is so concerned about the potential risks involved. So that's not just something that he's said publicly. That is something that he truly does feel and fear and is completely aware of, which is good, right? So, I mean, good to that extent, right? There's always this other aspect of Elon, which is his ego, right? I think that his ego is his biggest downfall. He's so childlike and so immature in a lot of ways. I just feel like he's got to grow up in so many ways. And for someone to be that immature or to have that much of an ego and be in the position he's in, it's just a little bit concerning. A couple of other things that I saw with him, which were interesting. I really saw him deep diving into quantum mechanics as just an interest later in his life, not too much later. So he's 53 now. So I saw around in his 60s, he's going to really get interested in quantum mechanics and quantum physics, which I think would be brilliant and incredible and a big benefit to humanity. And then I also saw him getting into consciousness and spirituality around that time too. It's kind of hard not to get into consciousness and spirituality when you get into quantum physics because they are so similar. And then two other things that I saw that was so fascinating. It seems like in his lifetime, he's going to really push, I saw levitating vehicles, so anti-gravity. It seems like he's going to be the one to not necessarily invent it, but maybe cultivate it, push it, give it the money that it needs to take off.
Flying cars?
Flying cars.
Let's
saw
go.
it. Yeah, let's go. And then the other thing that I saw, and this is sort of later in his life, in his 80s, I really saw him getting into cryo chambers as well. Yeah, so like he's going to be really interested later in his years to preserve life, right? And eventually he's going to want to cryogenically sort of freeze himself until there's a solution to live forever, which is, once again, a throwback to every sci-fi movie we've seen of billionaires trying to preserve their life. But it seems like Elon's going to really bring it into fruition.
Yeah. How do you feel about that overall? Just the people trying to transfer their consciousness to another vessel?
I think it's silly. Like, let go of your current body. I think if you really understood if you really understood reincarnation, then that wouldn't be such an issue. Like, you would know that I'm going to live a different life, potentially on a different planet, and it's probably going to be a hell of a lot better than this.
I agree. I think you live your life to the most, and whatever happens next,
you let it go and move on.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what happens next, but why would you want to be old and living at 80 or whatever?
Exactly.
Do you think he's spiritually protected? Because there's probably been people trying to come at him, clone him or something.
Oh, very spiritually protected. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, assassination attempts. Yeah, I mean, he's a threat. But what's really interesting is the Illuminati or the shadow government will not take him out because if they can convince him to join their side, then he's too big of an asset. So he's got that going for him. That's actually his safety right now, is he's such an asset and he's kind of playing that side, joking with them. Yeah, sure, one day, but never. We'll never. It just seems like in his soul. And so because of that, because he's sort of stringing them along, it seems like they won't actually take him out until he says, no way. And hopefully, you know what I mean, he continues to sort of play that game. because he's in the middle right now.
Yeah, which is a dangerous spot to be in too.
Totally dangerous.
Playing both sides, double agent, right?
Yep.
You also did a video on Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
That one was crazy.
Yeah.
So what did you find out with her?
Yeah, so interesting. So she's definitely joined the Illuminati. She's definitely joined the dark side. A big part of her influence is because of them. However, that being said, something that I have never seen before with, say, an Illuminati member is this really interesting. It literally looked like a silver lining around her aura. And there was this sort of this purity or this beauty that's in her soul and in her energy, which was incredible. So same thing. I think that there is a point in her career where she can switch sides and really expose. Like she could potentially be one of the biggest whistleblowers of our generation.
Wow.
Which is really exciting. And then, of course, nerve-wracking, because if she were to speak out on the truth of what's really going on, they would probably kill her, kill her off. So I think she's a bit of a double agent as well, but I did see a lot of the entities and other things that I usually see around Illuminati members.
Yeah, I feel like next year there's going to be a lot of exposing.
Yes, that's actually what I picked up with the Trump predictions as well, is a lot of deep state exposure, a lot of the crimes against humanity getting exposed over the next 4 years, especially with trafficking, and a lot of the darker sides of Hollywood are all, we've already seen it, especially with Diddy and all of this stuff coming out, but it's only going to exponentially continue.
Agreed. Ellen left the country. Jay-Z just got a charge, I think sexual assault or something on a minor. So the dominoes are falling.
They are.
It's crazy. Yeah. I don't recall this ever happening in history before or something like this.
Yeah. I mean, it's the truth, right? And I think there's a lot of people both in Parliament and in Hollywood that are sweating in their boots right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of government jobs are going down the drain too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Times are changing.
They are.
One more guy I was interested in. I didn't see you make a video about him, but I'm curious if you know anything about him. Kanye West.
Yeah, okay. So I have remote viewed Kanye. Definitely a huge part of the Illuminati. I mean, that's a no-brainer. All of the signs are there. And, what else did I remote view about him?
Was he cloned, you think?
Okay, with clones. So Kanye does have clones of him, but for the most part, he plays by their rules. So they haven't completely taken him out, right? So sometimes if they're too much of a threat, they'll just kill them off and then replace them entirely with a clone. But this is why Kanye is just a little bit disheveled, because he has gone through so much MK Ultra programming. So even if they aren't fully a clone all the time, they go through a lot of programming, and they also get pretty drugged up to be able to handle that kind of programming. And so he'll just shoot off random stuff. And sometimes he does say the truth, and that's when they either give him more drugs or more MK Ultra programming, or they'll put in a clone for a little bit. So they haven't completely taken him out, and he does have clones, but for the most part, it is him.
Yeah, because you'll see him go through these episodes where all the PR is attacking him every few months.
Yep.
And that's him just exposing stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, no one takes him seriously because of all the other he's saying at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they paint him as crazy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Throw
And
him
that's why they haven't taken him out, because no one takes him seriously.
That's
right?
crazy.
Yeah.
So MK Ultra programming, have you seen what that entails?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's really bad.
It's very, it how does it work exactly?
So they do this usually in these underground military bases, and it usually starts really young, because you can sort of manipulate the mind a lot easier when they're young. There's not as much resistance, and this is where they find celebrities and actors and actresses at a young age. This is why Disney was a huge funnel for all of these sort of massive celebrities, is because they found them at a young age, and they were able to program them from that point on. And like the MK Ultra programming, there's so many different stages or levels to it. Obviously, it gets more intense. It sort of depends on, what they're looking for. But essentially, like the programming kind of looks like torture, right? So they'll sleep deprive them, they'll deprive them of food and water, they'll hop them up on a bunch of drugs, some like less nefarious, like acid, but it'll sort of distort the mind, distort the reality, and then they'll put in whatever the program is, right? So if it's like, you need to be like the cute, innocent country girl, like that's the programming, or you're going to be this way, and like that's the programming. There's a lot of people who are not celebrities who have been MK Ultra programmed as well. So
Really?
like even people who are a part of like assassination attempts, like I believe that they potentially, maybe not all of them, but they've also been MK Ultra programmed. And then if there's say a trigger word, like if you get a phone call and then they say a series of words, that could be the trigger.
Whoa.
And then the trigger is all of a sudden they're literally like disassociated from their body and they go and do the thing that they complete the target that they were set out to do.
Crazy.
So it can be that intense with just one mission or one target, or it can be fractioning the soul, right? So really the intention of MK Ultra programming is to break apart the soul in the body so that you're not really in control anymore, and they can very easily sort of either come through you and control you, or attach an entity or even a reptilian into the body so that you're no longer in the driver's seat.
Wow, that is nuts. I've actually seen Candace Owens talk about this with the school shootings.
Okay.
Like how some of these shooters seem to be programmed. They're just
Yeah.
operating like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No emotion involved.
Yep.
That is so crazy. What do you think's gonna happen? Like with everything, it's just crazy right now. Crazy times.
I think it has to get worse before it gets better. And that's sort of where we're at right now. We're going to see the polarity moving into 2025 get a lot worse. So it could be riots. It could be protesting. It could be potentially even a civil war, right? I also think that there's going to be a lot of disillusionment. So, I mean, we've got AI. Think of fake news, but on steroids, right? It's like CEOs saying stuff that they didn't actually say, or, presidential candidates or, individuals in politics saying stuff that, isn't actually them, right? So with the disillusionment, there's going to be this big question, which is, what is true anymore, right? What is real reality? And when all else fails us as far as what is real, especially online, we've got to start using our extrasensory abilities. We've got to start going within and utilizing discernment. It's no longer about fact checking. It's no longer about what scientist or doctor is saying what. It's now going to be about, how do I feel about this? Do I resonate with this? So there's going to be a huge surge in spirituality, and also a huge surge in things like fake alien invasions and like, different agendas playing out to create more chaos, more fear, and disillusionment. So that's going to be really important. And I do have a couple of other very specific predictions that I picked up on when I was remote viewing Trump and his sort of next 4 years. So I actually saw that there is going to be an attempted follow-up assassination. And I saw that it wasn't going to work, so it wasn't going to happen or wasn't going to work, but there is going to be another attempt. And what I saw anyway was that it could potentially happen right after inauguration in January or February.
Wow.
So that's just something to keep in mind. I mean, not totally surprising. I did predict the first and the second one.
Really?
Yeah. So, but once again, not super surprising there. I did see stock market crash, mini financial reset, not a huge financial reset, but definitely a financial reset to a certain extent. I don't think it'll be as bad as 2008, but I think we're going to see a huge shift, especially in the stock market side of things, sort of more the traditional. And then I also saw, once again, no surprise here, but AI to change every industry in the way that it's actually going to empower the individual. I know that, we talked about disillusionment and how it can be really damaging for what is real, but also I think that it's going to expedite a lot of things that people don't necessarily need to be taking the time doing. So that's just something to watch for, because once again, it's a scary thing. I don't really know how to feel about that. And then I also saw too, destabilization of global relations. Okay. And then specifically, there's going to be a change in access to goods. I don't really know what that's going to look like. I don't know. I really don't know. It's just what I picked up on.
Well, he's talked about the tariffs a lot, so it seems like there is change.
So that could be a part of that, right? And then also, there was also going to be a focus on eradicating chemicals from food and water and air, which I think less Trump, more RFK, but that was actually very clear. I was happy to see that. Not just something that we're all speculating on, but something that I did see actually happening. And then huge power shift as well going to happen in the next 4 years. So the individuals who have had power, the deep state, the shadow government, they're going to be losing power. They already are, but it's going to happen rapidly, which is exciting, but also a bit scary because they still have their control in every industry. So what are they going to do if they're really scared, right?
Yeah.
What are they going to do if they're backed into a corner? And then, like we mentioned before, more crimes against humanity being exposed, which especially a focus on trafficking, which I think we can all be happy about. Another very interesting thing that I picked up on was that I saw Trump having a heart attack, actually, in the 3rd year of his term. And I did ask if it was, say, natural. Is it maybe a direct energy weapon? Like, who knows? And no, it looked like it was a totally natural heart attack. I'm not surprised. I mean,
he's out here.
Look at the guy. Yeah, I mean, he's in a position. But yeah, so I saw that in the 3rd year of his term. Now we have to understand too that timelines can and do change all the time. So these are just things, impressions that I was probing when I took a look at the next 4 years. So
that's just assuming nothing changes it. No outside events.
Yeah, exactly. So, and as always, take it or leave it. But there's also going to be massive cosmic disclosure as well in the next 4 years. We're already seeing it happen, but it's going to continue exponentially.
Yeah. So that's just the government announcing more alien stuff, you're saying?
Yes. And then also, like, there's going to be sort of real and projected sort of alien attacks as well. Not attacks, but I think, Project Bluebeam, I think they do have the technology to do something like that. And I think that there are still a lot of organizations that are outside of the presidential control. So I don't think that Trump's going to have anything to do with the fake alien invasion. But I do think that they're going to stage something. And I also think that something real is currently happening and will continue to happen as well.
Wow.
Which is tough, right? It's tough to discern between what's an illusion, what's a projection, what's an agenda, and what's really actually taking place.
Yeah. Do you believe anything the government said about aliens and UFOs?
Yeah, I mean, I think in so many ways it's like religion or the Bible, right? You get like maybe 10% of truth and then 90%.
Right.
And I think that that's what we're seeing right now. Mostly they want to just control the narrative. I really think that that's the only reason why they have a huge push in Congress to talk about UAPs and UFOs and even aliens. Like, finally, they're having the conversation on, great, they're real, but who's manning the craft? Who's behind it? Which is a really important conversation to have and to expose. But I do think that they are trying to sort of control the narrative before it gets out of their hand.
Right.
And it quickly is.
Yeah, it seems like it because they're too slow.
Yeah.
They got to go through all these hearings and everything. By the time they do that, there's 20 YouTube videos about it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're spot on. You're talking about this stuff daily, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm trying to track all of the trends and everything in this field and sort of help people with the discernment, Right. And as always, even with my stuff, like, I know what I talk about is just crazy. And I wish that it wasn't. Like, I wish this wasn't the case. Like, I wish we could just talk about butterflies and rainbows, but like, this is really happening. And I think by talking about it, but by talking about it in a neutral and even a higher vibrational way, we can be aware of the agendas and conspiracies without any fear behind it.
Right.
Because the fear is what really feeds the matrix.
And you're on the inside. That's why I like talking to you, because you're at these meetings, you know what I mean? These Galactic Federation meetings. Yeah. I don't want to go through 4 different people to find out what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And one person who read a book or one person who saw, someone else talking about it. It's the game of telephone, right? Like, let's just go right to the source. And I've said this before, but I know that one day I'll be out of a job because everyone will be able to do what I can do. I don't think that I'm special. I don't think I have some sort of gift from God. I think that everyone can quiet their mind, close their eyes, and concentrate and gain access to the exact same information.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you know what's going on with these solar flares? Because my calls have been dropping every day. It's actually crazy.
Yeah. So massive solar flares hitting us right now. Not too long ago, I want to say it was about a month ago, we got hit with an X-Class 10 solar flare. Now, for reference, when we had the Carrington event, which was, I want to say, back in the 1800s, it hit the planet and wiped out all of our technology at the time, which was, I don't know what it was, like the printing press or telegrams or something, right? That was an X-Class 40. Now, likewise, back in, I want to say the 80s or 90s, there was another solar flare event, and it wiped out pretty much all of the technical grid, whatever it's called, electrical grid in Quebec, Canada. And that was an X-class 15, okay? So this is the largest solar flare we've had since then, which was an X-class 10. We also have to realize, too, that solar flares do hit very specific areas of the planet. If it was a big enough one, it could just completely consume the entire planet. But you've got to think about the rotation of the sun and the rotation of where the planet's at. So wherever that solar flare kind of comes out of the sun, it's going to hit wherever the planet is rotating or facing the sun at that time.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right? So if it were to wipe out the entire planet, it would have to be massive and probably just kill us in an instant. I truly believe that solar flares are actually DNA upgrades, right? If you think about a solar flare and the electromagnetic energy that is emitted from a solar flare, and we as electromagnetic beings are receiving that energy, it's an energy upgrade. However, there's a lot of negative symptoms associated with solar flares, like calls dropping, but also just in the physical body. You could get really dehydrated. You could have a really terrible sleep, an increase of anxiety. Some people get like weird skin rashes or skin issues, right? You think about it as like almost like a radiation dump. So there's, say, positives and negatives to it. I do think that there is a likely chance that we get hit with a really big one in our lifetime, and it changes the world forever beyond what 2020 did to us.
Wow. So we could get hit with like an X51, you think, in our lifetime?
Maybe not that big, but 2025 is our solar maximum, which means that the sun is going to be more active than ever before. So I wouldn't be surprised if something massive happens then. And there are ways to sort of protect yourself as far as, what are they called? Essentially, you can get a box for your home, a surge protector. You can get a large surge protector for your home. And what a solar flare would do is sort of short circuit all of the electrical everything, okay?
So a fire would start?
Potentially a fire would start, but mostly it would just wipe out all of your circuitry, right? So having a huge surge protector, like, think about a light bulb getting too much electricity, right? And then it bursts.
Right.
So something like that, right? So you can get a surge protector. I'm also a big believer in Faraday bags as well. So a Faraday bag is essentially just like a silver bag, and I put all of my external hard drives in it. I put my crypto wallet in there as well, my whatever it's called.
Ledger.
Hard wallet, hard wallet. I put that in there because if anything were to happen, those are the things I want to protect.
Right. Imagine losing your hard wallet.
Yeah, exactly. In a solar flare. You don't want that to happen.
I'm going to get one of those. Better safe than sorry.
Yeah. Faraday bags. They used to be really expensive back in the day, like 10 years ago. And now you can get like a bunch of them for $50 on Amazon. So,
yeah. I'm all about protection.
Yeah. Do it.
We're in a crazy time these days.
Yep.
I was having these wicked nightmares last week and I had to cleanse the house, put a bunch of crystals. I haven't had them since.
Good.
I think there's a linkage there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also because you talk to a lot of people, like people can bring in stuff too. And then those things can attach to you and then you bring them home. So
100%. I was having these vivid nightmares. It felt like I was in another dimension, honestly.
So there's another thing that's happening as well. This is really going to sound trippy, but I'll just go for it. So we're doing a lot of timeline jumping as well. And one of the things that we've been doing at nighttime especially, and this is kind of a part of the awakening or the ascension, is it's going to sound weird. We've been living through other timelines. So if you've ever had a dream where it feels so visceral, it feels so real, it's like you're right there, you're living it, but you're actually not you. You're a different person altogether, maybe a different race or a different gender or a different age. And you're like, wow, but this feels so real. What's happening is we're actually downloading and receiving different timelines and different lifetimes from the collective grid to give us information that we need for this timeline, for our body. Yeah, so I call it uploading and downloading from the grid. And that's possible. You can do that in meditation, but what I found at night is I'm hopping into these completely different lifetimes, but it feels like modern, like today, not necessarily a past life. And I'm a different person, and I'm learning something in the dream from this alternate reality, and then I take that lesson back into my present life.
That is interesting.
It's wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you lucid in these dreams? Or
I'm extremely lucid, yeah.
Okay. But do you alter anything, or do you kind of just let it happen?
No, it's like I'm aware of myself as that person doing the things, but I'm like going through the motions. You know? Sometimes I have lucid dreams and I'm like, we're in a dream right now. You know, like,
that's how I was.
Wake up, you know.
That's how I was as a kid. I'd want to just mess around and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I want to do that these days, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I kind of just want to let it happen. And I feel like there's lessons in dreams.
Yeah, there are, right?
Like, I feel like dreams are really important.
They are really
I have a
important.
journal every morning. I write down what I remember.
Yep. I had a dream not too long ago, and I was like in a courthouse, and same thing. I think I was myself, but I was in like heels, which was weird, and a dress. I was like dressed very nicely. And I was coming out of this courtroom, and as I'm walking out, I realize I'm in a dream, like I'm dreaming. And so I go over to this group of people who are probably like lawyers. They're all very nicely dressed in this courthouse. And I grab them by the arm, and I'm like, we're dreaming right now. This is a dream. Like, we've got to wake up from this dream. And they're like looking at me like I have just lost my marbles. And like, we're in reality. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, we've got to wake up. Let's wake up together. And they're like, okay, someone call security.
That's hilarious.
You know, but it was just,
I've done that before. And the creepy part is when they're agreeing with you.
Yeah, they're like, okay, yeah.
They're like, wait, you're in my dream. You know? Because I feel like extraterrestrials or whatever can enter your dreams.
For sure. But so can spirits, right? So ghosts and like loved ones, like that's the main contact that the average everyday person has to someone who's crossed over and passed on. Is they'll meet them in their dream and say, hey, I'm okay. And like that's such a beautiful, it is like a meeting space. It's an interdimensional meeting space. Really.
Which is cool. And I've heard of people that are still alive in this lifetime can dream hop as well. Some people have that ability.
Yep, absolutely.
They can enter other people's dreams. That's crazy.
Yeah, I haven't been able to do that. I don't know if I'd want to.
Actually, yeah, that might be invasive.
Yeah, it does feel a bit invasive.
Yeah. So I'm looking into fairies right now.
Okay,
because I'm half Irish and I know there's a lot of lineage there in Ireland. Have you had any experiences with fairies?
Oh yeah, I love the elementals. So I have like a 10-acre off-grid type property in Canada, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it's surrounded by fairies.
Whoa,
fairies
in Canada.
And like little gnomes. Yeah, so they're everywhere, right? Especially where there's nature and like forests. They tend to love forests, and like running water. One of the things that I learned just this past summer from the fairies is the way that they can communicate with each other is through mimicking physical sounds. So a sound is a vibration or a frequency, right? And fairies or the elementals are in the 4th dimension. We are in the 3rd dimension. So I also believe that, say, Sasquatch or Yeti, they're in the 4th dimension as well. That's why sometimes you don't see them, but you hear them.
Right, the shapeshifters,
you don't see them, but you smell them, right? And so they can like sort of shift in and out of this dimension. And so a bunch of my friends went into the forest and they ended up hearing this growling, this like really strong growling sound. And I'm like, that's weird. Like we don't have wolves or coyotes. Like we don't have anything in the woods that would give that sound. So the one day I was meditating and I was chatting with the fairies. Sounds ridiculous, but I was like, hey, so my friends got pretty spooked the other night. They heard a bunch of growling from the woods and they ran out. And the fairy said, that was us mimicking the sound of a coyote to scare them out of the woods because they were on sacred grounds.
Whoa.
Like they were coming into a territory that we didn't want them to come into. So we had to scare them off somehow. So especially if you walk into the woods and you hear these like bird chirps, which just sound like the natural environment, that can be them communicating with each other through the sounds that they can mimic.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I had no idea.
So they can mimic other animal noises.
They can mimic whatever they hear. Yeah, animal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Yeah,
How do you know if you're on sacred grounds? Because that's kind of scary if you're just hiking one day and then you're somewhere.
I think there's a feeling, right? You got to like really tune in. It's like you step into a certain place of the woods, and for me anyway, like I'll feel it. Like sometimes you feel like you're being watched by them because they're watching you. But sometimes it just feels like kind of like a holy place. Like there's an energy there.
Wow.
You know? Yeah.
That is crazy. Damn. You got 10 acres in Canada?
Yeah, we got 10 acres.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's like retirement goals for me.
Yeah, I grow all my own food.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So we're up there in the summer. We escape the heat Nevada.
I want to get to that point because there's an energetic component to food.
Oh my goodness, there is. There's nothing like growing your own food. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And just being off grid and
I mean, people don't know the meat they eat, the energy in it.
Yeah,
if it's
exactly.
like slaughtered in a certain way, it could affect your body, right?
Yeah, so I actually so I'm a intuitive eater. I used to be plant-based for a long time, and then I was keto. You know, you try kind of different things. But for me, I talk to all of my food. So
you talk to your food?
Yeah. So like if I'm cutting a tomato, I love cooking too.
Yeah.
So if I'm cutting a tomato, I'll be like, thank you so much for growing and give me the nutrients I need.
Wow.
I'll also talk to my meat, especially meat and fish. I'll be like, thank you so much for being here. It's kind of tough because there's something called psychometry, which is if you touch an object, you can get a sense or a feeling of the energy of the object. For me, because I'm clairvoyant, I can have flashbacks of objects.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I've touched like ancient relics and stones and other things that I've gotten flashbacks. I can touch a crystal and actually sometimes even get a flash of the person who mined it out of the ground.
What?
Yeah. And even like pinpoint where in the world it was mined from and then get it confirmed. Yeah. So, but yeah, with meat, unfortunately, you know, I'll be talking to it or tuning into it, and I'll get the last moments of that animal's life.
Wow.
Which is, you know, it's obviously very traumatic, but I thank them and I have gratitude. I'm like, thank you for feeding my body and for being here in this, you know, capacity. So, and that raises the frequency. And I always tell people, I'm like, look, alcohol is a lower vibration, right? Just naturally, objectively, alcohol has a low vibrational frequency. But if we crack open that beer with gratitude and we say, thank you so much for being, you know, the cold ending of my day, we can raise the frequency of the beer. So when it comes down to the beer or the kombucha, you know, you can raise the frequency of whatever it is that you're consuming as long as you do it consciously.
That's cool. What's the frequency of cannabis?
It's pretty high.
Oh,
yeah,
it's high.
It's definitely like it's a medicine, and actually I call it a technology. And cannabis, along with ayahuasca and other plant medicines, have actually been gifted to us from extraterrestrials.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, of course, you have to be coming from a certain place to utilize plant medicine, right? Or else it's not going to be a good, positive experience. And, of course, if you overuse or abuse plant medicine, it's also not going to be a great experience, right? So everything in moderation, but I absolutely remote viewed that plant medicine was a gift, a technology from them to us, including psilocybin and mushrooms.
That is cool. Even psilocybin, huh?
Oh, absolutely psilocybin.
That is interesting. Why would they want to give that to us, you think?
I think that it's an alternate way for us to reach their dimension. But now you have these like DMT pens, you know, these DMT vape pens. And that really gives me a lot of concern because it's almost too accessible.
I got offered one in a parking lot. I'm like, no, we're going to an arcade right now. Like, I just want to hang out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very like deeply sacred experience that I just don't think should be taken very lightly. So I have my own feels about that, but ultimately it is, it's a bridge for us. However, I believe that any drug or plant medicine is, it's just a stepping stone, you know, it's not the end goal. Ultimately, we can do all of that ourselves. And I love it because our first interview, a lot of the comments were like, okay, what is she smoking? I'll have that, right? Or like, you know, what medication is she on? Or, you know, what mental facility did you find her out of? And I love that. Like, bring it on, you know, because I understand just how crazy all this stuff sounds. But everything I do sober. Like,
oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like,
you don't even microdose?
No, I don't need to.
Wow.
I don't need to. My world is that world most of the time. So I don't need to be tipped over the edge. You know, I don't knock it because I do believe it can be good for people and beneficial. But ultimately, I really try and teach people you can do this yourself. You don't have to be a 6th generational psychic. You don't have to have some sort of God-given powers. You just focus and concentrate and quiet your mind long enough in meditation, and you will find all of the answers of the entire universe and realize that what I'm talking about isn't that crazy.
I love it. Meditation and breath work I've seen people have success with.
Big time, yeah, absolutely. You can stimulate your pineal gland and release DMT just by using breath.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, DMT ayahuasca, that's the one I haven't taken just because I feel like it releases when you die. So I kind of want that to be my first experience.
Okay, cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I know some people go on those journeys and that's cool.
Yeah, I've released DMT like large amounts of DMT multiple times through meditation.
Oh,
and
really?
breathwork, like talking shot out of my body.
Oh, so you don't have to wait till you die then.
Oh, definitely not. But think about it, like DMT is a naturally occurring chemical compound in our body and our brains, right? So it creates the sounds and the visuals and the, one day it's like everything seems a little bit more vivid, and it's because you're releasing more DMT, right? So that dream state that you were in, that's DMT. DMT is released when we're born, when we're in REM sleep, and when we die.
Interesting.
So every single night, your brain is producing DMT.
Oh, I did not know that. Do you think animals like dogs release it when they?
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, they dream, they're releasing DMT. If you had a simple chemistry set, you can extract DMT from a blade of grass.
Grass releases
Grass.
it?
Yeah,
What? So grass is conscious then?
DMT is in everything. Yeah. Every living thing.
Wow. Because people thought plants were not like conscious for a while, right?
You have to watch The Spirit Molecule.
I need to watch that. I heard about
Watch
that
it.
one.
Yeah.
I saw the one about mushrooms, Mycelium Network.
Yeah.
That one blew my mind.
So cool. Yeah.
How smart these plants are. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Elizabeth, what's next for you? 2025 is around the corner.
Yeah, I've got a book coming out, my second book. It's called Your Anxiety is Giving Me Anxiety. So it's all about anxiety. I think we need it right now. And just cultivating the community, bringing people together. I'm putting together an entrepreneur course. So helping people find their mission and then apply their mission. Okay, great. Now I know what I'm here to do. Like, now what, So I really want to activate as many of these sleeper star seeds as possible so we can all get going and help 8 billion people figure out what the is going on here.
I love it. We'll link it all below. When does the book drop?
11/11/2025.
Oh, so late next year.
Yeah, late next year.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll link everything else below. Awesome. Thanks for coming on again. That was fun.
Thank you, Sean.
Yep. Check out our stuff, guys. See you next time.